Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of the Mr. Redder podcast. Our first story we'll be reading today. My sister complains about her life, so I gave her a piece of my mind. After that, my creepy friend put a tracker on my phone. What should I do? And after that, new manager takes away overtime and working through lunch? Okay, sure. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen doesn't get to complain about anything. I can't even complain about being stuck in this room with you all day. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My sister complains about her life, so I gave her a piece of my mind. To start this off, I'm going to give you some context as to why she did and why I didn't pity her. I, 28 female, have a sister Caitlin who is 1 year older than me. Growing up, we were dirt poor. Our family nailed almost every single Southern hillbilly idea on the head. We both did decently, but neither of us had ever considered college. Caitlin graduated high school first and got a full-time job immediately. She began to help with bills, but at some point began thinking about maybe going to school. I was having the same thoughts a year later when I graduated. Well, what we hadn't known was that when our great-grandma passed, she left my dad all that she had, which came up to a sum of a couple $1,000s that they decided to save for us. And because Kate began talking about maybe going to school, Mom began to save her bill money and add it to the sum of the money. Unfortunately, it still wasn't a lot, so our parents sat us down and explained that they had money for only one of us to go to school and that they would have to think about who to give it to. I was prepared to fight for this chance because I realized that was my chance to better myself. I was ready to do whatever it took, but I didn't end up needing to because Kate gave up. I guess Caitlin realized she wouldn't be picked because I had better grades and was more well-liked, because Mom told me later that day that she had backed down and said to give it to me. So fast forward, I got my BSN and work as a travel nurse. I do very well for myself and live 2 hours away from my hometown. I went to visit my sister because she's pregnant with my nephew, and I missed her and brought some gifts. We had lunch and we were just chatting about what we were up to when she began to complain and whine that she was tired and asked if I didn't mind if she vented. Before I could answer, she started talking about how she was tired all the time from her shifts at work and then having to come home to her kids and her husband. It sounded a lot like she was regretting her life, and after about 20 minutes, it was starting to get on my nerves. She would not stop or change topic. Finally, I lost it and told her that I wasn't here to listen to her complain and that she really shouldn't complain about the life she chose. I told Caitlin that if she didn't want to have to get married and have a low-paying job, and if she wanted to better herself, she should have fought harder to go to college instead of giving up before she even tried. It ended in her crying, which I felt horrible about, and then she went home without saying anything else. I tried apologizing for how I phrased it, but not for anything I actually said because it was true, but she won't accept it. Our parents have been giving me the cold shoulder, and I feel lost because they won't listen to my side of what I said. Am I the jerk here? You're the jerk. You're a nurse? I hope you show more compassion in your job than you do to your sister. You wrote that your parents are mad at you and won't listen to your side. What is your side? I just reread your post and I can't see it. Your sister seems like a generous soul who needed to vent. Nothing you reported that she said indicates she was blaming you for her situation. Do you always make everything about you? OP, have you ever thought that your sister might have backed down and surrendered college to you because she wanted her little sister to be able to go? Wanted her little sister to have a better shot at a good life because she already had a full-time job and it's easier for her to keep the job than letting you find one when she would go to college? Yes, you didn't ask for it. You were prepared to fight. Your sister probably knew how badly you wanted to go to college and let you have it. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. You clearly stated your sister got a job right away and helped with bills. You guys grew up dirt poor, and yet you don't have a single ounce of empathy for her situation. It's not a life she chose. People born in poverty get less chances. It's a fact. You got lucky, and it turned you into an entitled jerk, which is pathetic. You were given a chance that she was not, so you have no excuse to become a worse person. You're the jerk. Just reading your post, the tone you use, everything about it makes me rage. Before she gave up, you were ready to fight for tooth and nail? She knew you had a better chance of making it and stepped aside. She didn't do anything. You go to lunch with her, and she has to ask if it's okay to talk to you like a sister would? Then you get tired of listening to her for 20 minutes? You then proceed to tear into her. She wanted to confide in you, not get a lecture. You know why you are where you are today? Because you have an older sister that was willing to put her dreams away for you to have an opportunity. Sure, you worked hard to get to where you are, but Caitlin cleared the path for you. You owe her a huge apology for acting like an absolute jerk to her. You're not the jerk for saying the truth. You're the jerk because if you're just so much smarter and better than her, you easily could have phrased everything better in a more mature way. I feel for the clients you have been to. I guarantee that you are the reason for all these healthcare horror stories. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. Bruh! My creepy friend put a tracker on my phone. What should I do? I, 21 female, and my friend, 21 male, are home from college. We went to different high schools, but we were friends through clubs and extracurricular. We had a friend group senior year that we both hung out in. The friend group fell apart, but we stayed somewhat in touch and see each other a few times each summer for lunch to catch up. Anyways, we were on the phone about 2 weeks ago and made plans to chill, grab pizza, and listen to music. We were Snapchatting old friends, and he snapped some of them back through my phone. I don't think much of handing my phone to him to reply. I mean, I've been friends with this guy for a while now, and we've hung out, so we're like decently close, I guess. The other day, he texted, joking about how I need a better sleep schedule since I was up till 4 a.m. I laughed it off and said, yeah, I was up till 6 a.m. studying. I asked him how he knew, and he just laughed it off and made a joke. I didn't think much of it because I know Instagram and Snap sometimes shows when you were last active on the app. Anyways, today, he texts me joking that I need to charge my phone. I was at 2% and was weirded out by how he knew that. Again, he just laughed it off and made a joke. I was like, what? Did you share my location or find my iPhone? He said no and said that he'd explain it tonight. We had plans to grab food. I was kind of weirded out, but he kept joking. I check Find My iPhone and locations and nothing is shared. I then realized that on Snap he had ghost mode disabled and shared my location with himself. When I asked him about it, he denied it and he didn't admit it until I sent him a screenshot. I expressed how weird that was, but he was joking about it and saying see you later. I've been ignoring his calls and texts since, and he's spamming apologies. I was talking to one of my friends, 21 female of our mutual friend group, and she was weirded out at first, but laughed it off. She said it's weird, but he was clearly just messing around, and I'm being a major jerk for blowing it up when it was totally harmless, and that I was being a jerk for ignoring his calls and apology texts because he clearly didn't mean it since he's panicking that I'm mad. I'm not necessarily mad, I'm just totally weirded out, and I feel like my privacy has been invaded the past 2 weeks. I don't know how to feel. Not the jerk. I'd feel completely creeped out and stalked. I hope your phone notifies you when he decides to hide an AirTag in your car. OP. I literally made a joke about being AirTagged and he texted back saying, LMAO, imagine. I literally said I wouldn't put it past you. Like, even if I forgave, I don't think I could ever feel comfortable again. Not the jerk. Stalking is never something you should blow off and it's not harmless. You need better friends. Right? This is a huge red flag. Now he's trying to get out of it by being funny and charming. That's how creeps always get away with their crappy behavior. OP, you're right. I've been ignoring all calls and texts. In the beginning, I figured he wants to apologize and felt bad for ignoring someone trying to reconcile and apologize. But it's been nearly 2 hours and all he has texted me was, I'm sorry, please don't gate me. You're making me nervous. Hello, a picture of his dog, and I'll pay for lunch. I would have at least expected some long text apologizing and saying how he regrets his actions and how it wasn't a funny joke. Unless sharing your location shares your battery life, that's not all he did to your phone. This is where I'm at. How does he know the battery life? OP, when I first questioned him about it, after showing him the Snapchat screenshot, he said it was a feature and offered to show me when we go grab food later. Safe to say, we never grabbed food, but a lot of people have said it's not a feature on Snapchat, so now I'm worried he put something else on my phone. You know he wasn't planning to tell you, right? You weren't supposed to find out. He was planning to trail you until you had to replace your phone and then get a hold of your new one to put a tracker in that. Not the jerk. He's not your friend, and you need to distance yourself for your own safety. OP, I expressed that to a mutual friend, and she said he made jokes in indication of it with the get a better sleep schedule and charge your phone comments. And like, I can kind of see where she's coming from, but I think we're both just in shock by his actions that we're trying to rationalize it somehow. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you forgive your friend or not? Please let us know. No way. I'd rather not end up stuck in the trunk of a beat-up old Saturn deep in the woods on a dark, cold night. New manager takes away overtime and working through lunches? Okay, sure. I worked for a large brokerage firm as an hourly employee. Every day I worked through lunch and did at least 1 hour overtime in order to handle the heavy workload my team received. The extra hour of overtime was beyond normal business hours, but I would also get another 45 minutes of overtime for working through lunch. Not only me, but the 3 other people on my team did this as well. We were all fine with it, as the overtime pay really helped us out, and we were able to leave work with our tasks for the day completely finished. The tasks were super repetitive, so there was really no fear of burnout from us. The thing about working as an hourly employee at this company was that we would have to clock out for lunch for at least 15 minutes, even if we worked through the determined hour of it. Again, this was completely cool with us all, as the overtime pay more than made up for 15 minutes of lost pay each day. This system worked really well for about 2 years, but then we got a new manager. He was the jerk, make everything as efficient as possible kind of guy, and we knew that he was going to come after our overtime pay. The best part about him becoming the manager is that he knew absolutely nothing about the jobs we do. He was completely clueless about the department as a whole and how high our workflows were. 3 weeks into this new manager starting, he calls a meeting for us all and says that no matter what, we should be taking an hour lunch every day and we should be doing no overtime. While it seemed like a nice thing for him to do to give us a break, he clearly was coming after our overtime pay. I had questions, such as how he expected everything to get done every day without the working through lunch and overtime we put in. His response was, "We hired you all for 40-hour weeks, so that is what you will work for. Anything more is practically stealing from the company." So there goes our overtime pay. From that day forward, I took the hour-long lunch and made sure to have at least one other teammate tag along. I also began leaving precisely on time every day once my time was completed, regardless of how much work still had to be done. As you may have guessed, things started to back up big time. Our manager started to sweat, asking why we were so backed up, and I sat there saying that we can only do so much in a 40-hour work week. This continued for about 2 to 3 months, and then we randomly received an email from our boss's boss saying that overtime was allowed again and that 1-hour lunch breaks were no longer mandatory, but that they recommend we still do. Instead of hiring more people to help with the backup of tasks, giving overtime to people who were already trained was clearly the better option in this situation, and it was also much cheaper. At least someone in management had some sense before it got too out of hand. Edit. Fail to put that we did have multiple mandatory 15 to 20 minute breaks throughout the day that I did take. Thank you to those who have pointed that out. Apparently, I'm getting fired for upgrading someone. Last night, I was alone on second shift. We're sold out of standard kings online, but somehow a very high-tier rewards member is able to book one with points. I catch it pretty much as soon as he makes it at about 8:30 p.m. Slight moment of panic, then I realize I can upgrade him to a bigger room with a bigger bathroom. Cool, problem solved. He checks in pretty soon after. I give him his keys, he goes to the room and comes right back down. He says, and I quote, "So, since I get a handicapped room, that means I can take one of the handicap spots, right?" I laughed and thought he was joking. He was not joking. It's important to remember that this room is an upgrade that just so happens to have a roll-in shower, which is much bigger than a regular shower, and a separate oversized jacuzzi tub. The only thing handicapped about it is the roll-in shower. Literally, that's it. So anyway, he was not joking about taking the handicap parking spot. I told him that he definitely could not do that without a handicap decal. I explained to him that we were sold out and that the room he originally booked we didn't have, so I gave him a bigger room. It's literally an upgrade. His response is something along the lines of, "So you put me in a handicapped room even though I'm a very high-tier rewards member, but I can't take a handicap parking spot? Okay." By that point, I was out of patience. I really have a low tolerance for BS, and honestly don't know how I've lasted in customer service for 12 years. So I just told him that if he took one of those parking spots, that I'd immediately have his car towed. Up until this point, he's been standing closer to the front door on his way out, but once I tell him I'd tow his car, he comes over to the desk, takes out his phone, leans over the desk, puts his phone in my face, and says he's gonna take my picture. Now I'm like actually over it, so I told him, You're not about to take my picture. Did he get a picture of me? I don't know. Honestly, whatever. He puts his phone away and goes outside. I immediately call my manager and tell her, "Hey, just wanted to let you know I'm gonna call the police and evict this guy." She tells me to calm down and to give him a verbal warning and one more chance, but she does tell me that if he takes a handicapped spot, to have his car towed right away. Love her for that. So this total jerk comes back in and walks right up to the desk, takes some of my manager's cards, and says to me, "I just want to be clear. You don't give a hoot about your job, right?" I legit don't remember what I said other than, "You need to go back to your room or I'm gonna have you removed." His response was, "Okay, well, I'm about to call the hotel brand and get you fired. I'll be talking to your manager in the morning. You're about to lose your job." LMAO. What an idiot. My manager obviously told me I didn't have anything to worry about. She told me if he came to the desk again to go ahead and call the police. The only thing that really got to me was when he put his phone in my face and leaned across the desk. If he wouldn't have done that, the thought of evicting him probably wouldn't have even crossed my mind, but he really tried it. On my way out at the end of the shift, you better believe I checked every single handicap spot for a car with no decal. Of course, his scared self didn't have the actual nerve to park in one. You need me to start at 8:30? Okay then. Setting the stage. I was working in a small tech startup ages ago when I was just fresh out of uni as a grad first, then as a software engineer. At first, the company was fantastic. I was in the R&D department and we were making some cool cutting-edge stuff. Then the company ran into trouble and had a shakeup. They fired everyone in R&D except for the lowest paid worker, aka me. They then brought on a new GM who was not a tech guy. At this point, our product worked pretty well, but the sales guys would promise the world, whilst we could only maybe provide Iceland. The precipitating incident. I used to come in at 9 or 10ish, so not a morning person, and finish at between 7 to 10 p.m. Also, at least 3 to 5 times a month, needed to travel to clients and needed to be there for a meeting at 9, so left at 4 a.m. All good, got the work done and everyone was happy. Enter our new GM. GM. I've noticed you come in late on many occasions in the last few weeks. What is going on? Me. I've never had a set start time. Just do the work and get things done. I'm not late because I don't have an official start time. GM. That's bonkers. You're contracted for 8:30 to 5. I need you to be in at 8:30. Me. Sure, will do. Maliciously compliant. Come in at 8:30 every day, left at 5. Result. Got a lot less work done. Customers had to work around me arriving at midday. Sorry, my manager doesn't allow me to leave before 7:30, so nothing I can do. GM pulled me into his office, saying he had had complaints about me not being available to customers. I told him I don't understand why. He told me to work at 8:30, which I'm doing. He says, "Well, but customer visits don't count." Well, should have told me that. Then complained my productivity had gone down in the last few months. Well, sure, I'm working my contracted hours as per his instructions, no longer pulling 9 to 12 hours a day. Outcome. He asked me to ignore his instructions and go back to the way we were. Informed him I found a new job. My mom won't help me, but expects me to support her financially on multiple occasions. I, 21 female, am a college student in my senior year. I was lucky enough to get 2 different jobs on campus, not entirely relevant, but it ties in. I work in the residence halls at my campus for both jobs. One pays me twice a semester, as it splits the pay for both my housing and meal plan as the job pays for it. The other I get paid every 2 weeks. Both jobs are laid back. Here's the problem. Whenever I get paid back the money that's left over from books and fees, my mom always expects me to give her some of the money. She even has went as far as to go to my school's website to check the academic calendar to see when school refunds are expected to deposit. The week of deposit, she starts to question me on how much I'm getting back and how much I'm going to give her. I'll tell her that I'm getting enough back, as I don't want her to know how much because she wants half of what I get. Specifically, I remember I gave her $700 of my refund because she found out how much I was getting back. At the time, it was my birthday, and I was unhappy about this because I wanted to use the money for myself. Somehow, she blew the money up in a few days and claimed she paid bills with it. Then proceeded to tell me that I'll have to pay for her meals as well as her fiance's, not my dad, because they didn't have the money. I asked her what happened to the money I gave her, and she proceeded to guilt trip me, and by saying you're supposed to help family, and I gave birth to you and rocked you to sleep all those nights and I was tired. Basically giving me the whole, you should help me because I gave you life speech. She even tried to ask me for money to buy her fiancé a Valentine's Day gift. Fast forward to now, and I'm in a bind with money, and she tells me not to ask her for money, and she's not going to ask me for any. Not to sound bratty, but I felt it was unfair, especially since I have no choice but to give her my money and she never pays me back, but she expects me to pay her back. I'll just wait to go back to college at the end of July, because I know I won't have to struggle because I'll have both of my jobs. Don't give her the money. Tell her you need it and can't afford to give her any. OP. I've tried that too. She'll just start talking about me to everyone in the family that'll listen. Then they'll be upset with me until I tell them what's going on. Why do you care what other people think about you? It's none of their business. You can't control how others perceive you. OP. I know, I need to be firmer, but sometimes she makes life uncomfortable. I end up folding and giving in so she'll leave me alone. I know it's not healthy, but I'm working on it. You do have a choice about giving her money. Don't do it. Does she pay for your tuition or housing? If you pay for all of it, you don't owe her anything. You didn't ask to be born. Her taking care of you as an infant was her responsibility. Her bills, her responsibility. OP. She doesn't pay for my schooling, and the last time I didn't give her any money and I put my foot down, I was 18, and she didn't talk to me for 3 days. I had called sick with a bad ear infection, and she didn't even want to see if I was okay. She went as far as to talk about me in front of me to people about me not giving her money and didn't want me to say anything in return. Then I broke down when my aunt sent me a screenshot of the ugly things my mom said about me because I wouldn't give her any money. Then when I finally gave her the money, because I couldn't take it anymore of her acting like I wasn't there, she started talking to me again. Please cut contact with this monster. The entitlement of this woman is astounding. I went no contact with my parents after years of this kind of treatment and never looked back. Like, how hard is it to be a decent parent? For me, the final straw was when my dad refused to pay for my college just because I chose to major in literature. So now, thanks to my dad, I'm neck deep in student loans and I have a degree that's pretty much useless, so I can't even find a decent job. If that's not bad enough, I might be pregnant again, which won't end well for me like it did the previous times. Thanks, America. Am I the jerk for telling people in my school about my dad's affair with his wife? I, 16 male, live with my dad, his wife, and the kids they had together, who are 12 and 9. I actually had very little contact with my dad until 2 years ago when my mom got sick and ended up in the hospital. She passed 3 months after going into the hospital. Then I got stuck with his happy little family. My parents were married when my dad met his wife. She worked with him and they started an affair. The affair only came to light when she got pregnant. I found out about it through my aunt and uncle. I stayed with my mom. Dad sometimes saw me. I've never been afraid to be honest about why I don't like living with my family. I've talked about it in school since I moved in with them, in their small little town. Word has gotten out, and my dad's wife found out how people will judge. She was grocery shopping, and a friend of hers told her to stay away from her husband. Things got out from there. They also found out I mentioned how my parents' marriage only ended because my dad got his wife pregnant during the affair. Their kids never knew about this and found out via mean kids at school. They ended up confronting me over it, and I told them they were coming to the wrong person if they wanted an apology, because I don't give a hoot about their feelings or them being embarrassed. Dad told me I had a bad attitude. I told him he shouldn't expect me to celebrate their affair or their relationship. She then told me if my mom was a good wife and mother, my dad never would have strayed in the first place, and that I had the chance to have a family and was punishing them when it wasn't my place. I told her if she ever said anything negative about my mom again, then she would be happy to settle for embarrassment, because I would make sure everyone knew just how terrible she is to speak crap of her stepson's past mom when she had got with his father behind his mom's back and helped in the breakdown of his family. They still insist I should not be telling people about their personal business and making their lives harder by spreading gossip. Am I the jerk? Your dad doesn't get to have an affair without it affecting his kids and their mother. You can't cheat in a vacuum. Therefore, it is not private since his choices affect people who depend on him. This is a textbook example of play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Huge not the jerk, You are grieving right now. I'm sorry your mom is gone, bro. Life will get better, but it takes time. Not the jerk. Bottom line, if you're embarrassed to tell the world what you're doing, then you probably shouldn't do it. They're embarrassed over their own actions. If it was such a great thing, why are they so ashamed to tell people? Because they know they're wrong. They're awful people, and I wouldn't care about their feelings either. People on here are being nice to you because you're young, but let's be honest here. What was the purpose of you telling people at school your family business? Everyone sucks here. They are right. You shouldn't be spreading gossip, and you're doing it out of anger, which I get, but people will use this info against you and your family. And they are crappy for what they did, and how the stepmom speaks to you is atrocious, but that doesn't mean that they don't have a point. Everyone sucks here. You're a jerk for indirectly causing issues for your half-siblings who are innocent in all of this. Your stepmom is a giant jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. This table must be hard to serve. VIP four-top in my section. The owner's dad, who actually owns a ton of reputable and lucrative restaurants. He figuratively signs my paychecks and probably my future paychecks too. I'm new at this place, and the manager looks reluctant to give me the table. But it's a specific table and it's in my section, so manager and servers give me the lowdown. Very specific table, very specific wine and services, very specific special requests. You'll be fine, they all say through tight smiles before disappearing to watch the show from afar. I'd been serving for about a year, but not at this level, and never a VIP. But the one thing I did know was that being nervous would mess me up, somehow, somewhere, so I stayed calm and did my best. They were dry, as in didn't speak to me much, but that was fine too because they were so specific with wine and service timing that it left little to talk about. I was dropping the appetizer when the dad boss man looked at me and said, "This table must be hard to serve." I wasn't sure how to respond because it was so candid and warm, but I wanted to keep it professional. So with absolute honey in my tone, I said, "Oh, of course it's important to me that everything is perfect for you, but I wouldn't say you're difficult. I trust my training, and I'm confident I can provide you with an exceptional experience." As I was speaking, I could see the twinkle emerging in his eye and the tiniest smile on his lips. His guests looked similarly amused. His response, "Oh, I meant the table itself, wedged into a corner like this. I don't know how you guys reach into this corner." He became one of my very favorite guests at that moment, despite how embarrassed I was. He requested me whenever he came in, and we never spoke of that awkward time I insinuated that he was a difficult guest when he was just criticizing his son's furnishings. We don't pay you to be 2 minutes late. I've worked at many retail chains, but have had many terrible bosses. Here's one story I think I can give up without any repercussions. At a small, specific retail store, 5 to 6 years ago at this point, I was confronted by my old boss on a specific event that I was late by 2 minutes. Previous day, he had asked me to come in on my day off. I'm at an earlier time than I normally do. I agreed to come in on my day off and work a shift I'm not normally used to. But it's retail, it cannot be that difficult. My old boss asked me to work 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. and I showed up at 7:02 a.m., which in my state, there is a 5-minute window for everyone. And this was 100% not a habit of mine at all. I'm normally one to show up 5 minutes early every day and wait aside the time clock. I clocked on and walked to my department with a drink I had already purchased the previous day. As I walked into the department, the manager greeted me, then said, "When I schedule you at 7 a.m., I expect you to be in department by 7 a.m., not a minute later. We can't pay you to clock in, buy something, and then start working. Over the course of a year, that adds up to hundreds of dollars of lost labor for one individual." I told my old boss that my drink was from the previous day and that I just clocked in 2 minutes late. My old boss replied with, "That's not my problem. You need to plan better. You were scheduled at 7 and we are losing cost of labor each minute you are not here. Be in department at scheduled time." Which is not true. I spoke regularly with a payroll employee, and she explained to me quite some time prior that the company does not pay you 3 minutes before or after your scheduled time. So if you clock on at 7 a.m., you are not getting paid until 7:03 a.m. If you clock on at 6:57 a.m., you are not getting paid until 7 a.m. Same for when you return from lunch. However, if you clock on at 7:04, after that 3-minute window, you begin getting paid immediately that minute. My boss was right. I need to plan better. I asked for a printout of my timestamps going back as far as they had record of, and I tallied up each day that I had arrived 3 minutes early and did not get paid for it. I counted well over 330 minutes within a 3-month span that I was not getting paid for, which ended up being a little over $110. I gave my old boss a copy and said, "You can pay me for these dates where I was in department on the dot without getting paid for it." My old boss then replied, "That's not how our company policy works." He then went into detail to explain to me exactly what I had already known and gave him a copy of. Yet my old boss is now recognizing that he's contradicted himself and willingly lied to me. When everything clicked in his head that he's contradicting himself, it was far too obvious because his face went bright red and he started smiling, in my opinion, like he had been caught. My old boss: "Well, you know the policy. We can't pay you for that." Me: "Then I will begin my shift when I am getting paid, not the minute you schedule me. It's not like you're losing labor if you're not even paying the employees that window of time. Schedule me at 7 if you like, but I will not be clocking in until 4 minutes after the scheduled time, as you will not be losing any cost of labor for it, and I will not be losing pay over your personal policy." For about 3 weeks, I clocked in 4 minutes late every day, no matter how early I arrived. I eventually got a warning from the building's HR that it's riding the line and very close to getting a write-up and down the discipline road. I explained to her the entire story, as she seemingly did not like the manager of mine either. She laughed pretty hard at the whole thing and offered me a department transfer with a higher pay. She reminded me that my behavior was listed under a category that could get me terminated and thought the transfer would be a fresh start. Instead, I put in my 2 weeks notice and thanked her for the wonderful opportunity. The funniest part of all of this, years later I saw my old manager working at a new chain in a similar position to what he was doing when I worked for him. He smiled and waved. I smiled and waved and continued on. As time went on, I also bumped into the old HR manager who was working in an entirely different field. I asked her why my old boss left that company. She laughed and said, "He didn't leave. We fired him for time theft." Apparently, my old boss would take a lunch, leave the building, and never clock out for it. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.